So today, Lisa Kritz is a physical therapist and clinical leader on our Dallas Disbro Ability Center, and she's going to share her expertise related to health and fitness after spinal cord injury. Her presentation will be followed by Sheltering Arms exercise physiologist and NeuroFIT coordinator, Alexander Lavallee, and he's going to share information related to community fitness and wellness opportunities.
So we're going to talk about major health complications that individuals with a spinal cord injury are going to experience, some nutritional recommendations for individuals with a spinal cord injury, and then we're going to talk about appropriate types and quantities of exercise that's recommended for individuals with a spinal cord injury. So starting with those health complications, hopefully none of this is new material, but if it is, then I'm glad you're here. Some of the main conditions that people experience after a spinal cord injury include spasticity or muscle jumping that's not voluntarily controlled, pressure injuries, orthostatic hypotension or low blood pressure, autonomic dysreflexia, blood clots, infections, and pain. All of these are not necessarily a cause from the spinal cord injury itself. There's something that goes along with the injury as a result to the damage to the neurologic system. So there are things that can cause lifelong health complications, but can also be managed and prevented early on. So blood clots come from immobility, so moving around, taking the proper medications help with those. Infections come from usually skin issues not being addressed properly, so making sure you're doing those pressure reliefs when you're supposed to and doing your skin checks. And then obviously pain, everyone experiences some level of pain after their injury, and hopefully we can manage that proactively early on. There are different types of pain, so depending on what pain you're having, your doctor may have different methods for trying to address it. Some additional health concerns that people with a spinal cord injury are going to experience are overweight and obesity, diabetes, osteoporosis, heart disease, pneumonia, and breathing disorders, and postural changes. And all of these things are really kind of a sequela event from the increased immobility that you're experiencing. So when we're sitting still, our metabolism is not working the way that it used to, and we're more at risk for the overweight, diabetes, the heart disease. Sitting in the chair all day increases risk for pneumonia and the postural changes. And then lack of weight bearing increases your risk for osteoporosis or bone weakening. So these are all things that we want to be aware of and try to manage proactively so they don't become a long-term problem for us. Our second subtopic today, we'll talk a little more in depth about some nutrition changes after your spinal cord injury. So why does nutrition matter? You may think like, well, this is how I used to eat before my injury, so this is how I want to continue to eat. But there are some things that we have to consider, including the metabolism changes, mobility changes, bone mineral density changes, and then just the management of those health concerns that we've already talked about. So if you're not getting up and walking like you were before, pushing the wheelchair an excessive distance, then your metabolism is going to go down naturally from that change in mobility. That change in mobility makes it harder to keep your metabolism going. So you just have to be more conscientious of the food you're taking in. But then also sitting in the chair and not standing and walking like you were prior to your injury affects your bone mineral density. So we have to take in additional nutrients to try to manage that. And then for the other health concerns, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, obviously we want to make sure we're taking in good nutritious foods and being really mindful of the treats and snacks that we're taking in. Kind of the nutritional building blocks we're going to talk about today. Number one being carbs. I'm sure everyone has heard of carbs. Carbs are not always bad. They get a little bit of a bad reputation, but we need carbs to be fuel for our body. If we eliminate carbs from our diet, it becomes really hard to do the exercises that we need to do the mobility tasks we need to do, including getting out of bed, getting in the chair, pushing our wheelchair. There are good and bad carbs though. So you want to include the good carbs, which are your fruits, your whole grains, low-fat dairy products. but try to minimize some of the bad carbs. Like fruit juices are loaded in sugar. They're not very good. Refined grains, again, have a lot of sugar. And then your sweets. Our second building block being proteins. I think most people tend to know they need protein to build muscle, but it's also important for repairing your bone and skin. So kind of maintaining that skin intactness that we need, and then keeping your bones strong. So you want to think about taking in lean meats and then unprocessed plant-based proteins like beans and soy nuts, really trying to limit like fried proteins and even just beef with heavy fat content. Really recommending like chicken, turkey, pork, because these are leaner, more healthy for you. Also trying to minimize processed plant products. So veggie hot dogs are not as healthy as they are advertised to be. And our third building block is fat. Again, kind of like carbs, they get a little bit of a bad rap, but they're not always bad. You need a little bit of fat in your diet, but you just want to make sure that it's minimized and you're not making it a large percentage of your intake. Some other vitamins and minerals to consider are calcium and vitamin D. Calcium is really important for your bone strength, your teeth, your muscle function, and for your nerve communication. So early after your recovery, this is especially important because that's when your bones really start to lose some of that mineral density. And then we're really working to maximize any nerve function that might have been disrupted by your injury. So healthy diet is anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a day, depending male to female. And some good sources would be dairy products, dark leafy greens, tofu, canned salmon, and orange juice. We do want to try to minimize supplement use just because there's a lot of waste by the body, and the body also has to work really hard to process those supplements, which is sometimes depleting other important minerals that we have. Vitamin D is important because it kind of helps regulate that calcium use as well as phosphate. So you want to take in 600 milliliters a day, and some good sources are fortified breakfast cereals, which are usually labeled on the box, orange juice, yogurt, and margarine. But then even better sources are some of your natural fish like salmon, tuna, and mackerel. Additionally, your nutrition is really important for bladder and bowel function. So what you drink and how much of it changes your fluid output and can affect the likelihood of having kickoff or overfilling of your bladder. So if your bladder consistently is overfilling, then it leads to long-term bladder stretching, which can make incontinence a bigger problem. So even if you have some healing and you regain continence after being incontinent shortly after your injury, if you continue to overstretch your bladder, you can actually lose that function. Or even if you don't currently have continence and something you're working towards, if you let your bladder overfill and stretch, it affects the way you void, and that's when you end up getting that kickoff. And that's just something that we don't want to have to deal with on a daily basis. So really, we should be trying to minimize carbonated beverages, alcohol, caffeine, and spicy foods. And a little bit of these is fine. We just, again, want to really think about taking these things in moderation. And then if you are going to be, if you're going out with some friends and you want to have a drink with dinner, just be aware that it's going to affect your fluid output. So maybe capping more frequently or doing whatever about bladder management more frequently. You really want water to be your primary beverage through the day. And if you can, include 1 cup of cranberry juice just because it's good for urinary health. For your bowels, again, what you eat or drink changes the frequency, volume, and consistency of your stool. So if you are taking in too much water, your bowels might be really soft, which could affect your program, or vice versa. If you're not getting enough water, then your bowels might be really firm. It's recommended to get approximately 6 cups of water a day, but again, that's going to be based on the person. If you find that that's making your stool too watery, then you would want to cut back. And then you should take in about 15 to 30 grams of fiber per day, because that's going to help increase the frequency and bulk of stool, which is going to make it more reliable for your bowel programs to happen as you plan them and how you want them to happen. And then our third subsection, we're going to talk more about some of the exercise and fitness aspects of this presentation. So why is exercise important? It's really the same reasons now that it's been since you were a kid and somebody told you that exercise was important. First of all, it builds muscle strength and endurance. And this is especially important for you now if you're transferring a different way, or if you're having to walk with an assistive device, if you're having to push a wheelchair, because you're using your muscles in ways different than they're used to and different than the way they were built to be used. So you just want to be super cognitive of taking care of them. Exercise also helps prevent and manage cardiovascular disease. So kind of all those health complications we talked about earlier, this is going to help diminish that. Helps you manage and maintain a healthy body weight, helps you maintain good posture, which is going to help your breathing. So improving your breathing stamina and strength, specifically with respiratory exercises. And it can also help reduce pain. A lot of times we develop pain from not using muscles the way they're supposed to be used. So if we're doing a proper exercise, that can help minimize that. So there are 4 different kinds of exercise that we'll generally talk about that should be included as part of your routine. You should do some kind of stretching. You want to do muscle strength training, which can be with weights or resistant bands or any other way that you want to go about doing it. Cardiovascular training, which could be as like getting on a bike, an arm bike or a leg bike, or do some kind of circuit resistance training. And then breathing exercises are very important. So how much is enough? The numbers are always way higher than anybody wants to hear. Stretching should really be 5 to 7 days a week. So the more you do it, the better. You can't really do too much stretching unless you're just overstretching the muscles with the specific activity. Muscle strengthening, you should be doing twice a week and really be working at about 50 to 80% of what your max effort would be, doing about 3 sets of 10. And the idea is you should be able to do 10 repetitions of an exercise, but then not be able to necessarily do the 11th or the 12th repetition. And you need that minute or 2 rest break before you can do the second set of 10. If you can do 30 of them back to back, then you're really not working at a hard enough intensity. And then for cardiovascular training, the recommendation is 20 to 60 minutes a week, 20 to 60 minutes per session, 3 to 5 times per week. And again, working at that 50 to 80% max effort. So if you're working at an 80% max effort, the idea is you probably wouldn't be able to go for 60 minutes. So you'd be working more along those 20 minutes. And then if you're working at about a 50% effort, you'd be able to go for about an hour before you just couldn't go anymore. Some special considerations for individuals with a spinal cord injury is a lot of those things that we have already talked about. If you have elevated blood pressure, you want to be careful of any exercise because it's going to increase your blood pressure. So making sure that you have medical clearance before doing that. Having low blood pressure or that orthostatic hypotension. Again, the exercise is going to increase your blood pressure during the activity, but usually after an exercise, your blood pressure is lower than it was prior to the exercise. So you want to be super cautious of not putting yourself in a position that you're too low and you're feeling uncomfortable and passing out. Autonomic dysreflexia is a phenomenon that causes elevated blood pressure. So if you're having that, then definitely don't do an exercise during. Bone mineral density loss. The longer period of time that you go out from your injury, if you're not doing a lot of standing and walking, you can have that loss of bone mineral density. And then you're more susceptible to breaking your bones. So just being super cautious of that during a transfer or during a certain exercise and not putting increased strain on the muscles, or on the bones. Spasticity and pain, again, if your muscles are jumping on their own, just being extra safe with your transfers and your activities. Pain is a little bit of a weird one because we have already talked about how pain can be improved with exercise, but also if a specific exercise is causing a pain that's usually like a sharp pain, then that's not good. So we don't want to continue that activity. Muscle soreness the day after or a few days after is expected and good even. But like a sharp pain during or like debilitating pain the day after is not something that we want. If you have altered sensation or pressure injuries, you need to be careful of the exercises you choose and make sure you're doing good skin checks afterwards, and then being aware of temperature regulation issues. So if you can work in a indoor temperate environment, that is best. If you are outside on a hot day, making sure you're in the shade, obviously using sunscreen and skin protection, but then anything you can to just keep your body temperature down. Same for if it's cold, keeping yourself warm with blankets and coats and stuff as needed. Any questions?
We're going to go ahead and move on to the next portion, which is Alexander Lavalis. He is on the line. So hello, Alexander. Thank you for joining us. Alexander is the NeuroFIT coordinator in our NeuroFIT program. He's an exercise physiologist, and he is going to be sharing some additional information related to fitness and wellness services. So thank you, Alexander.
No problem. Thank you all for having me. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Can you all see it, my screen?
Yes, we can.
Beautiful, beautiful. So today I'll be talking about NeuroFIT along with some other things. So first, what is NeuroFIT? NeuroFIT is a neurological fitness-based program geared to helping improve the quality of life for individuals that are living with neurological conditions such as stroke, spinal cord injuries, Parkinson's, brain injuries, neuropathy, and much more. NeuroFIT incorporates an innovative programming and state-of-the-science technology to empower our clients to achieve their fitness and recovery goals. We achieve this by implementing evidence-based practices and individualized approach for each client. Our focus is on improving function of the upper and lower extremities, weight management, strength, conditioning, balance, and overall quality of life. Let's take a look at our staff, our certified exercise physiologists. So you have myself, Alexander. I'm a graduate from Virginia Commonwealth University with a major in health and physical education and exercise science with a concentration in exercise science. I'm a certified exercise physiologist through the American College of Sports Medicine. I'm a trained Indigo specialist. I have ample amount of training through the NeuroFIT program. And this past year in April, I presented at the 2021 Christopher Reeve Summit. And my partner, Hope Adams. She's a graduate of Longwood with a major in kinesiology with a concentration in exercise science and a minor in health education. She is also a certified exercise physiologist through the American College of Sports Medicine. And there's some fun facts about her. While she was at Longwood, she started a program to help adults with special needs. She also is the Indigo trained specialist. She's currently the Help Hope Live ambassador, and she has tons of hands-on training experience. Now, what makes NeuroFIT so unique? So, one of the first things, one of the major things, is that you have access to some of the best rehabilitative technologies in the world that can help get you moving again. We also maintain a very close relationship with your referring doctor and therapist to make sure that we're trying to reach the same goals that you set and that we're achieving those goals. With the purchase of a 10-session package, you can also get our access to our functional electrical stimulation or FPS cycle, which I will explain to you later, as well as access to our open gym facilities. One another key things that makes us unique is that we offer sessions that range from 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or up to 2 hours, depending on what you're looking for. Now, as mentioned before, the technologies. So the first ones we're going to talk about is the Indigo. The Indigo is a lower extremity exoskeleton that provides a highly individualized gait therapy for spinal cord injuries or stroke survivors. Its adjustable settings allow it to be tailor-made for a wide range of appropriate individuals. Some of the pros include improving blood flow, GI tract flow, and a great maintenance program for bone density levels. And as you can see, I will play the video now. We have a spinal cord injury. We have a person that has a spinal cord injury. He's walking in the Indigo, looking good, feeling good. This is a great way for him to get out of his chair. So our next piece of technology we're going to be talking about is the Locomat. The Locomat is a robotic rehabilitative stationary exoskeleton. It enables effective and intensive training to increase the strength of the lower extremity muscles and the range of motion of joints in order to improve walking. This device mainly is used for individuals that are currently dealing with spinal cord injuries. However, stroke survivors can use this as well. This can be a great maintenance program to allow individuals to maintain the bone density levels and, just like the Indigo, improve blood flow. So as you can see, he's walking on as I said before, the stationary exoskeleton. He's walking on the treadmill. There's a screen right in front of him where he can look at different programs, different games he can play it on. I can adjust the speed to have it go up to about 3.5 kilometers per hour. So he's having a nice stroll right now. Some more technologies, as I mentioned before, the FPS Cycles, or the functional electrical stimulation bike, is a therapeutic device that uses low energy electrical pulses to generate muscle contraction in the upper and lower limbs. So if we look on the first picture onto the left, you can see our young lady, she has her electrodes on her on the left arm. You can see she has some on the biceps, some on the triceps, some on her shoulder as well. So what it does is, as you're doing that cycle, the muscles are contracting as you're cycling. So it's like you can actually get the actual good muscle contraction while you're doing it. And the same thing if you look on the right to our young gentleman over here. He has the pads you can look at on his quads, on his tibialis anterior, and might have some on his hamstring as well. So what it does is, as you're cycling, the muscles are contracting to kind of simulate what it would be like to actually be on the bike. Now, here's some other great pieces of technology that we have. First, we have the power plate, which is on the right, and then the Motomed that's on the left. Let's talk about the power plate that's on the right. This is a vibrating platform that aids in strength, flexibility, and management of spasticity and tone. It does this by providing vibration levels called G factors. So what that is it measures the frequency and the amplitude, and it kind of makes this combine and calls this thing called a G factor. So what we can do is you can have two exercise physiologists. We can work on helping the spinal cord injury survivor. They can we can help them stand onto the platform, where we can provide the vibration, or they can sit on it as well. Whatever they prefer to do. Tall kneeling is another option as well. We've tried that. We've done that as well. So different opportunities for them to let the vibration help loosen them up. Now, on the left, we have the Motomed. The Motomed is a motorized upper and lower extremity cycle. It's similar to the FES cycle, where it can provide passive cycling motion up to 90 RPMs. However, the main difference between the FES cycle and the Motomed is that it does not provide electrical stimulation. However, it can be used as a strength training exercise. So what you can do is you can turn it off from passive mode to active mode. And by that, it can provide resistance during each cycle. So if you look right here, you can see that our young lady is holding onto handles. What you can do is you can loosen the knobs below the handles, and that will turn the cycle around, and that way she has the upper extremity portion of the cycle. And what you can do is you can, like I said, turn it from passive to active mode, and now she can actually really engage and really fight through resistance to get her arms moving. Now, I talked a lot about technology. Let's see what NeuroFIT looks like without using technology. So in the first video playing on the top right, we have our spinal cord injury that we saw before doing the Indigo. He's using our blade pods. The blade pods is one of our new things that we have here, and it kind of helps with testing someone's reaction time and focus. If we look to the bottom, we look to right here, we have another spinal cord injury, and he's doing tall kneeling ab rollouts. This is a great exercise for him, as using to strengthen his core and also stretch his hip flexors out as well. Our next video we have is another spinal cord injury right here, doing some adaptive jump ropes with the battle ropes. So you can see this is a great way to give him good cardio exercise as well as strength, because those battle ropes are pretty heavy. And then if we look to the bottom right over here, we have the same individual, and he is doing some tall kneeling single arm lat pull downs. This is a great exercise for balance, core stability, and strength, as he has to be able to balance himself and all and doing this activity. All right. Now, what are the requirements to be a part of the NeuroFIT program? First, you must complete an evaluation with an exercise physiologist. Then you must be able to breathe without an assistance from a ventilator, unless otherwise determined by an exercise physiologist during your evaluation. You must be able to perform card transfers without the presence of an exercise physiologist. You must be able to cognitively process directions. We must obtain a medical clearance from a physician. And my favorite one, you must have a willingness to work hard, because we are here to reach our goals, to set new goals and reach those as well. So we must have a willingness to work hard and achieve great things. Now, here's some next steps for you if you're interested in participating in NeuroFIT. If you're in the area, I want you to visit our page at Sheltering Arms on the Sheltering Arms website and learn more about the program. You can call the number on the screen, which is 804-764-5275, to make an appointment for an evaluation. You can visit us, and then you can visit us at our location here at the Hanover site of Sheltering Arms at 8226 Metal Bridge Road in Mechanicsville, Virginia. And then the next step, that's when our journey begins together to help achieving our goals. But wait, what if you're not in the area? You can't participate in NeuroFIT. Don't worry, I got you. If you're looking for a fitness gym, here's some things you might want to consider asking the manager there. How is your accessibility? When you're entering the building, is there any curbs or lift that they be aware of? Can you move around the facility? Can you move around safely in your wheelchair or power chair? How is the bathrooms? How many wheelchair accessible bathrooms do you have in your facility? What about your actual equipment? Can you reach the equipment from a wheelchair, like weights? What about sanitizer dispensers? What about the water fountain? Can you reach those in a wheelchair? Another question you can ask them is, what sorts of adaptive equipment do you have there? For example, if you're looking like someone that you love to bench press, is the bench press pad wide enough so that way you can provide optimal safety? What about how adaptive is the equipment? For example, what if you need to maybe might have some moderations to the equipment to help provide you a safe workout? Will they allow you to do that? That's another question to ask them. What about their staff? Do they have any staff that has experience working with the SCI population? Are they willing to help you out if you need assistance with the transfer, or need assistance putting on a gripper or any other piece of device that will help you during your workout? And lastly, one of the major questions to ask is, what is the policy on caregivers being present? Do they have to have a membership too? Or are they allowed to come, but are they only allowed to come if they can't touch any of their equipment? Or do they have a discount membership? What is their policy? These are some questions you want to ask them. And now I want to ask you all, do you all have any questions at this time?
Anyone have any questions for Alexander or Lisa? Alexander, I would ask if you could talk a little bit about how you work with the physical therapist, and sometimes somebody is going to outpatient physical therapy and then they come to NeuroFIT for a little bit for strengthening and to achieve some goals, and then they go back to therapy. Can you talk about the importance of what NeuroFIT does to help the person return to skilled therapy?
Yes, ma'am. So a lot of times we reach a situation where, maybe for that first term of your therapy cycle, you're not able to see the proper gains that you would like to see for your insurance to clear you to keep on going. What you can do with NeuroFIT, since NeuroFIT is not insurance based, right? We're cash based. You're able to work on the goals as long as you want to. So with that being said, there's no specific timeline on those goals that need to be met. So what we can do is we talk to your referring therapist. We ask them, hey, what are the goals that you want them to work on? What are some of their exercises they prefer to do? What are some exercises that you have in mind that you want us to do? And what we'll do is we'll collaborate, we'll come together. They'll bring what they have on the table for the patient in mind. We'll bring in what we have on the table for the patient in mind. And then we work towards that to help provide their creativity and our creativity to help provide you the best result possible. But that way you can be able to see growth and see changes in your lifestyle. And once you're able to do that, and they can take notice of that, then what you can do is you can then have your doctor give you another script to try therapy again, because they've seen that you've now made progress to be able to return back to skilled therapy. So with that, we always try to keep a strong relationship with your referring therapist. The beauty about we're having NeuroFIT here is that we're right beside the neurotherapist. We're really right there, sitting right beside them, so we can ask them questions at any point in time. They see you, you see them. It's all a familiar environment.
Great, thank you very much. Lisa, do you have anything to add about what the value of keeping up with some sort of exercise program after they're finished with skilled therapy, like from your therapy perspective?
Yeah, so I think there's a ton of value from a PT standpoint and just a life standpoint of keeping up with that exercises after therapy, because a lot of times people, I think, get the idea that they can go to therapy and they're going to get all these skills, and then once they've got them, they keep them and they're good to go. But that's not necessarily true. If you're not staying on top of your exercises, then you can actually kind of take a step back. And then kind of like what was already being acknowledged and said was sometimes some of the barriers to therapy are that little bit of weakness or tightness or things that can be worked on in the NeuroFIT program. And then once those are taken care of and you come back to therapy, you can just keep progressing. So it's really important to kind of use the two together and then stay on top of all of your fitness needs, just so you don't lose function. So you keep working towards those goals, because there's a lot of goals that you want when you leave rehab that you don't have, or even when you leave outpatient. Sometimes you're like, well, I still want this, and it's definitely still achievable. You just have to keep putting the work in.
Great, thank you very much. If there's no further questions, I thank you all for joining us today, and wanted you all to know that our next community transition event will be in October, and announcements will be coming out on topics, and we hope to see you then. Thanks so much for joining us today.